So today we are going to talk about what I believe to be the most important topic and issue in the world right now. And regardless of whether it is impacting you directly or not, we are all involved and we all have a role to play in this. So the issue that is happening right now in Palestine and Gaza, we are witnessing a genocide occurring right before our eyes. And there are many interesting facets to this, which today we are going to delve into and address. I have two amazing women with me today, two women who I have known for a few years now and connected with during the last few years of difficulty that we faced with medical tyranny. And one of which is a content creator, Annette, and she also rescues animals, has sacrificed a lot of her life in doing so. And Youssra Rose, who is a freedom fighter like myself and a children's rights activist. So we met, during that very difficult period, and we stood beside each other, helping raise awareness and standing up against forced vaccinations and all that kind of stuff. The interesting thing that I have noticed during this conflict that is occurring at the moment is the very same people who stood beside us and could see the hypocrisy involved and could see that our rights were being completely neglected. Those very same people who were against all of that, somehow some of them are now in support of Israel, which I find quite interesting and contradictory, as the people who were involved in that medical tyranny, who were involved in the forced lockdowns and the whole shit show that occurred, are the very same people who are behind the genocide occurring in Palestine at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So let's delve into this and share with the listeners why that's happening, and are these people confused or what's going on there?
So my take on the shock of coming to realize that there are a lot of people in this freedom space who aren't actually on the same page as me was a real shock. Like, I was shell shocked. I didn't for a second think that I would have to be arguing and debating with people I marched alongside at every lockdown rally, organised nationwide protests with, because of, draconian measures, tyranny, lockdown, forced jabs, all that jazz, are the very same people I'm now debating and arguing with about why genocide is wrong, why ethnic cleansing is wrong, why apartheid is wrong, why illegal occupation is wrong. So that was a real challenge to my own cognitive dissonance. I had to challenge it big time, and come to the realization that a lot of people are selective humanitarianists. They don't really care about human life like they've portrayed. They don't really care about freedom for all like they've portrayed. They don't genuinely care about justice and righteousness like they have portrayed. It's literally whatever's affecting their own backyard. That is one layer. Another layer is, whether they are aware of it or not, there's a lot of bigotry. There's a lot of xenophobia. There's a lot of racism. Whether they're aware of it or not, it could be internalized. They don't understand it. They don't understand that that's what's forming their opinion on this topic. But it's something that a few have had to challenge and accept that that's why, and they've started seeing the light. And some who are digging their heels in, and suddenly, after the scamdemic and being very much aware of how corrupt this agenda is and how corrupt and how complicit the mainstream media are, and all these chess pieces that come together to have birthed and created and executed this agenda are the very same people who are currently supporting Israel. So there's a lot of very blatant, obvious signs to why we shouldn't support Israel. You know, aside from the obvious, right? Aside from the fact that they're committing genocide, there are a lot of blatant, obvious reasons why we shouldn't. In my case, with the people I've been speaking to, trying to explain to them like I would explain to a 5-year-old why killing innocent civilians is wrong, that they refuse to budge. Suddenly now the mainstream media is acting in integrity. Joe Biden's a great bloke. Albanese is awesome. All these people are just amazing. All the people we've been calling corrupt for the past 3 years, going on 4, are suddenly friends of Israel, therefore friends of us. And then you've got the Bible bashers who don't even understand their own scriptures. They don't understand their own scriptures, and they cherry pick certain verses to make their argument more valid, which in reality is just insulting their own faith, insulting their own holy book, and pushing people away from their faith, which we've been seeing a lot of. I've had friends that I thought I would be friends for life with, like I said, that I marched alongside with, that I thought we would take on any battle with. We've got this. We're a tribe. No, not my tribe. We were never on the same page. Clearly not, because I'm for all human rights. I'm for justice. I'm against any form of oppression, and not everyone is on that same page, unfortunately. So, and for those that say, you know, it's divisive, I don't think it is. I don't think it is, and I'll quickly sum up why. For there to be division, there should have been unity to begin with. There wasn't unity. If you're okay with genocide, if you're okay with collective punishment, if you're okay with ethnic cleansing, we were never on the same page. We were never united to begin with. So therefore, no division. We were just never united.
That's a good point.
And that pretty much is my answer to that.
Yeah. Well, I think from zooming out just a little bit, basically they broke up society into 2 factions, more or less. I mean, you could go deeper and say there's even way more than that. But like the 2 main factions, in my view, are those who use more of their right brain and those who use more of their left brain. So right brain is more emotional, and left brain is more like, I wouldn't use the word logic because a lot of people in the left brain are not logical, but it's more associated with it's more head and less heart, and right brain is more heart and less head. And so the political left is actually more right-brained, and the political right is more left-brained. And so that's how I see it. And so what they've done is to keep us in these 2 factions, because they don't want people to know there's a third option, right? Like you're either on the left or you're on the right. Now, if you try to go and take the third option, which is that realizing that these are 2 wings of the same bird, they will try to find a way to bring you back into one of those 2 factions. And they don't mind if you do a paradigm shift, like to shift from left to right or right to left. They don't mind as long as you stay in one of them. And taking the third option is more like for those who have more right brain and left brain balance. And that's called wise mind. I have a psychologist friend, and she calls it wise mind. It's when it's more the head and heart are more balanced. And so when you have wise mind, you're more logical when you're thinking, and you can see more clearly. Sometimes when they create these I just call them situations, there'll be one side that's more on the right side of history and one side that's more on the wrong side of history. And it all depends on what sort of psyop they've created. We have to get out of this mindset that just because the side of the political spectrum that we're not on is taking a certain position, that automatically makes that position wrong, because it's those people, they're the enemy, the ones on the other side of this political spectrum. They're taking that position, therefore that position is wrong, and no further research is needed to be done. I've seen that from the left and I've seen that from the right.
There is nothing wrong with anyone who's identified as left or right accepting that that identity might not be really what they feel on the inside. It's not something that really sits right on the inside, because I'm sure there's a lot of people on the right, stuck in the right, seeing everyone right now supporting genocide, and it doesn't feel good, but they're so scared to speak out or oppose it because then they'd be seen as a lefty, right?
Exactly.
I'm like coming to this realization as well. I don't get it, because to me it's humanity supersedes identity politics, supersedes whatever clique you think you're in, whatever side of the fence you think you're on, whichever wing you are on that bird. Humanity supersedes it. We should be mature enough to accept that there's right and wrong on each side. You can't just dedicate and be in such strong allegiance with a side, even when it's at the expense of basically condoning genocide. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of people, because they're so dedicated to being a right winger, for example, a conservative right. If I don't agree with them, it means I'm a lefty. That's literally how, I'm sorry to say, dumb people are seeing this. Very tunnel visioned. There is a lot more out there. You don't need to identify with left or right. Just be a human. Identify with humanity. That's it. You can appreciate that there's good and bad on both sides.
That's right.
End of.
And that also applies to community groups as well, because you've got, and religious groups. So what I've noticed is that the people that are part of like if they're very involved in a certain like group, they have to subscribe to the hive mind of that community. Otherwise they feel like they lose their sense of identity, because their identity is wrapped up in the community. So the people that I find are the most receptive to the truth about what's happening right now are the people who have more like smaller social circles. You know, they don't really subscribe to any particular sort of like identity within a larger group. And so there's less at stake for them to take a more humane position on what's happening.
Society really does like to put people into boxes and categories. And I think that's like where we've gone wrong, because we don't belong in boxes and categories. And if we were aligned, if the left and right brain were coherent, if our hearts were connected, you'd be able to just see the truth, you know? So that's our first problem. We need to get rid of this left-right bullshit. So this next question or next issue or matter that I want to highlight is the fact that what is going on in Palestine and Gaza, it's not actually a religious conflict. I think it's very important that we address that, because a lot of people are misinterpreting it as some sort of a religious battle going on, when in fact it's not the case at all. It's not Jews against the Muslims. So yeah. So do you want to expand on that?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. What's going on currently, the genocide taking place, and one thing we've got to be very mindful of is the language we use. I refuse to call it a war, because it is not. I refuse to call it a conflict, because it's not. It's a genocide. And what's going on is nothing to do with religion. It's a lot to do with pretty much any other reason but religion. So the way the Zionists view anyone who isn't a Zionist is subhuman. They see them as non-worthy. They're peasants, subhuman, animals. We've heard them refer to others as this, right? The Zionist rule is a very corrupt and demonic one. They believe in world domination, and this isn't just theory. If you look into all the major companies, industries all over the world, you'll find that there's a Zionist that has a finger in every and each pie. And wars and genocides. Zionists fund it. And the global agenda of 2030 that we've been banging on about since all this COVID stuff. Zionists run it. They are a small minority of people in comparison to the rest of the world, but the Rothschilds and all the characters we've heard about through the COVID scam are Zionists. And Zionism is not a religion. Let's just make that very clear. Zionism is an evil political ideology that basically, in a nutshell, for the layman, means that they are superior to others.
And they have a belief that they are God's chosen people. Is that correct?
Well, yes, they do. They do believe they are God's chosen people. It's a tricky one because when we talk about Zionists, they're not all Jews. Not all Zionists are Jews. Not all Zionists are Christians. There are a lot of Zionists, and I've come to realize that there are Zionists in the world who identify as Muslims, like the Arab leaders in the Middle East, right? They're all Zionists. So basically Zionism, many Zionists are atheists. They don't even believe in God. They don't even believe in a religious book per se. The Talmudic Jews are very ungodly, very different to the Torah Jews. Torah Jews, who are the proper Jews, the proper Orthodox Jews, are very against Zionism. They speak out more than any of us do against what's going on in Palestine. They're at all our rallies. They're speaking out online. They're making videos. They're putting themselves in danger by speaking out because they get targeted more than anyone else because they're essentially speaking out against their own, right? But they've got this amazing movement, the Not in Our Name movement, the Jews for Palestine movement, which is incredible, which should highlight to a lot of people out there that this is not a religious war. Not even slightly. If it was, it would be Muslims against Jews or Christians against Jews or Christians against Muslims or whatever. It's not. It's Israel against the entire world. Because if you're not Israel's bitch, if you're not under the thumb of Israel, if you're not yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir for Israel, you are Israel's enemy, no matter who you are. So when you hear the term, if we are not free until Palestine is free, it's not because the whole world should love Palestine and the whole world is centered around Palestine per se. It's if Israel can get away with this genocide unscathed and not held to account, anyone can be on the target of Israel at this point. Anyone. No one's safe. No one's safe until this world calls bullshit on what is going on. No one is safe until the evil that run this world are put to a stop, are held accountable, and face the retribution for their war crimes, their crimes against humanity, the illegal occupation, the apartheid, the ethnic cleansing. And this is not just at Palestine. They are funding many genocides, including Congo, including Azerbaijan, genociding the people of the Armenian people in their land. If you look into any war that's ever occurred throughout history, peel back a few layers, the Zionists are behind it, funding it in one way or another. So, and the whole divide and conquer ideology, that is Zionism. Any religion that you find there's religions that are against each other, you best believe that in one way or another, Zionists created that division. One thing people fail to understand is the worst nightmare for the Zionists is people uniting against them. That is why they constantly create Islamophobia. They make out like Muslims are out to take over the world. Muslims want to kill everyone. Muslims, how many times has that story about the beheading of babies been taken back? How many times has it been retracted? And still people are using it as an argument. We had Piers Morgan use it just yesterday or the day before on his show. He knows it's bullshit. But his Zionist overlords force him to do it. They've got to create a constant state of dysphoria, division, fear, hatred, animosity amongst the people, destroy their harmony, Peace, unity is not on the agenda for them at all. This is one thing people overlook. You will, if, in any walk of life, I don't care what religion it is, I don't care what culture it is, what tradition it is, whatever it is, any walk of life, at the end of the day, essentially people want the same thing. Essentially, people want peace. People want to live in harmony. They want to be protected. They want their families protected. They want to be able to love on their families, protect their families, provide for their families. And they want, to do good by their God, their creator, their statue, whatever they believe in, right? That is essentially what you will find in common with every walk of life, with every ideology, with every culture, with every religion, but Zionism. People overlook this. Zionism is not about peace. Peace is the enemy. Zionism is about destruction. Zionism is about constantly keeping people in chaos, because when in a chaotic world, in a completely destroyed world, it's easy to control it when it's destroyed. People are in fight or flight. People are scared. People are in dismay. They want a savior, and who swoops in at the end of the day? Each and every time, a Zionist, just pretending to be, just to gain control.
It's important to note, and I think pattern recognition is really important, because if we don't have pattern recognition, if we don't develop that, that's how we repeat the same mistakes that we made in history. And so I think that we need to, Zionism is obviously, even though a lot of people are still asleep to this, but they're basically repeating what the Nazis did, okay? Like, there's no argument about it. People that want to argue with that, they will eventually agree. Everyone is going, once they receive all the information that is out there that they have not yet received, but it's out there, they're going to realize the patterns that are being repeated by the Zionists. And so if we reflect back on that, because in hindsight it will be clear, but right now it's happening on our watch. We need to try to have a little bit of foresight about this instead of just going, oh, wow. Because when you think about the Holocaust and how society could only reflect upon it in hindsight and say, oh, wow, look how terrible that was. Look at all those people that died. While it was taking place, like over the years that it was taking place, we had people that were being neutral about it, people that were in the dark about what was going on, and their ignorance and their neutrality was allowing it to continue until it got to the point where everyone sort of looked back in hindsight and went, oh my gosh, how terrible. What is it? One child every 10 minutes or something like that. Like, it's not a flex to wake up after. You can't bring these people back from the dead. So in the same way, we need to reflect upon what happened after the Holocaust was over. All you have to do is Google Operation Paperclip. It's not a conspiracy theory. You just need to look it up. It's right there. It's verifiable. So if you look into the Operation Paperclip, basically the mainstream view of Nazism is that the Nazis are no longer that have any sort of high status in society like they did then. And that's just questionable. I'm not going to give my opinion on that, but it's something that should definitely be explored. And I'm sure that it's the same situation with Zionism. And once enough people wake up to reality, we will see trials. And the people that right now are being neutral, they're going to hang their heads in shame. And they're also going to lie to their children and their grandchildren about where they stood. What also is going to happen is that even those who are on the right side of history, they're probably going to think, once the trials are over, that Zionism is over as well. But really, Zionism is like a curtain, but once you open it, there is a wizard behind it. That explains Operation Paperclip, right? If you want to understand why Operation Paperclip happened, it's because the buck didn't really end with Nazism. Nazism was a creation of another group behind it. It's the exact same thing with Zionism.
I just want to touch on what you spoke about, Annette, when it comes down to neutrality, and I think you touched on it as well, Dee. I'm appalled. I'm appalled, and I can't even take them seriously. Like, you can't, if you're telling me you're neutral, just FYI, and a lot of people agree with me, so it's not just me. If you're telling anyone you're neutral, you're telling people that you side with Israel. Point blank, period. Because there is no space for neutrality here. You're just too, for whatever reason, too scared to say that you actually stand with the oppressor. You know, I can understand why you would be, because it's despicable, it's shameful, and it's disgraceful. But the way I see it, and I'm a very visual person, so I always try to give examples, right? If you're in a park and you see a big kid, big 13-year-old boy, big boy, and there's a little scrawny 6-year-old boy getting the living shit kicked out of him by this 13-year-old boy, big staunch boy, little nerdy 6-year-old boy. He's getting the living shit kicked out of him. When you see videos online where people get beaten up and somebody's taking a video, everyone's like, oh, I can't, you know what? The bully is at fault, but so's the cameraman for doing nothing. That theory applies here as well. If you were in a park and a little child was getting the living crap beaten out of them, you're not going to just stand idly by. You'd be complicit if you did. You would be complicit. You would be just as bad as the bully doing the beating because of your neutrality. And this is the same here. I am appalled at the level of women who have built their accounts and profiles and social media presence around being mamas. Oh my goddess, I'm a mom, hear my roar, I'm going to protect all the kids and blah, blah, blah. And are completely radio silent at children being buried under rubble, being yanked out by their feet, by their hair, by their limbs, sometimes scattered limbs from under rubble. These mothers who are now completely silent, mute over witnessing how many Gazan mothers are having to bury their babies, completely mute at how many children are waking up in their hospital beds with no family members. They're all gone. They're the only surviving family member of that family. Do you understand how lonely that would be for a child? Do you understand that when a child is in pain, they need comfort and they don't have that? Strangers are offering them comfort because the people of Palestine, the Gazans, are people of big hearts. They will try to step in. They will try to aid, but you have to keep in mind these people are all in survival. They're on fight or flight. They're all being starved and dehydrated. They can only give to the most minute capacity. So who's looking after all these orphans? Who's looking after them? Who's giving them that love? Who's giving them the hug? Who's telling them things are going to be okay? Who's walking with them when they have to evacuate? Who? No one. And you got these mothers that are raking it in online by selling workshops on how to be an amazing mum, an amazing wife, an amazing... Sell courses on how to be an amazing virtue signaler. Sell courses on how to be an amazing fraudster and phony, because you are A1 at that. You will win any Academy Award that is linked to that because you have hoodwinked the shit out of your audience by portraying that you are a humanitarian, by portraying that you are for justice, by portraying that the children are the next generation, so we have to fight for them and we have to. After what? After you've got your house, you've got your farm, you've got your everything or anything you need. You got your narcissistic supply of people idolizing you, your cult following. They're all idolizing you online. There's no need to advocate for the less fortunate now. There's no need. You got what you needed. You showed your true colors, and there's a lot of people. I know it sounds quite specific, and if the shoe fits, take it off and smash it across your head. If that shoe fits, I am definitely talking to you. And it's a lot of people in the Love and Light Brigade. A lot of the Love and Lighters have proven to be demonic, in my opinion. If I were you, this is my advice to anyone listening. If you are idolizing anyone or you've looked up to anyone who is currently silent, who is not advocating for these kids, don't worry about who they stand with. It's not about standing with Palestine or Israel. You do not have to be camp A, camp B. Just be against genocide. There are these people who you idolize that are too cowardly to say ceasefire. They will not post ceasefire on their profiles. Unfollow them. I'm all about the cancel culture when it comes down to this. Cancel them. They've hoodwinked you enough. Don't give them the ammo to keep doing it.
Well, I think that, energy flows where attention goes. So if we're following them, adding to their following list, the algorithm is going to help their content. If we're looking at it, we need to turn our, start to channel our energy towards people that are standing on the right side of history, people that have passed and are passing the humanity test. Because
people that will defend your children one day.
Exactly.
People that will stand up for your children one day. These people have proven that unless it affects their backyard, they couldn't give 2/5 of. So be very mindful, like Annette said, where you let your energy flow. Don't give these people your following. Don't give them your support. They've proven to be undeserving of it.
It is very frustrating to see that there is a mentality out there, especially in the new age groups. Oh, if I focus on it, if I put my attention to it, it's going to continue to feed the negativity, right? There's this, I'm seeing this a lot. And that mentality, unfortunately, is another hijack, another agenda of
cop out.
Yeah,
cop out.
And I don't believe that that is the right way. Yes, I understand that we are creative beings, and that, yes, where you put your attention, that's where the energy goes, yes. But at the same time, what is happening in Gaza, it's not just single to that area, it's happening to all of us. Okay, and they don't realize that the degree that that's going to impact their lives. And Annette, I know you would know how to kind of explain.
Well, I think that the negative power thrives in our blind spots, because these issues they're negative, so they don't want to give them their energy. They remain in their blind spots, and this is where the negative energy is thriving. So, there's that saying that the Christians say, the best lie that the devil ever made was convincing you that he doesn't exist. There's a lot of truth in that. And you want to just say, oh, that's war. That's politics. So when you think Jewish Holocaust, do you think that was a war? Do you think, oh, that was politics? And to get involved in and to try to speak out for what was happening, that would have been politics. Basically, you want to be one of those people that stood on the sidelines, did nothing, said nothing until a certain amount of millions of Jews were killed, and then to reflect back and go, oh, wow, that's terrible. Look what happened. Oh, my God, awful. So because that's what I see. I mean, I posted something about numbers of children dying in Gaza, being killed right now per day, actually supersede the number of children that were dying per day in Auschwitz. And I lost 1,000 followers from that post. Wow. Just from that post, I lost 1,000 followers. That just spoke volumes to me, because it made me realize that, like, today is December 13. How many months has it been? And yet people are still not seeing it the same. They're still seeing it like it's politics. It's a war. All these months in, how many deaths? What is it like? I don't even know the number now. What is it, Youssra?
Almost on 22,000. Okay,
so we're on 22,000, but it's still, and most are children. No, almost half are children. And we're still calling it politics. And we're still calling it a war. So doesn't that tell you how out of touch people are with reality right now?
Absolutely it does. Absolutely it does. It's insane.
It's mind-blowing. It's very hard not to feel very angry to the point of crying, because because when you bear witness to what's happening, like I saw a video this morning of 3 girls whoever was filming it captured the moment that they spotted their father burning because their house had just been bombed. And you see, like, on video, you're watching these girls react to seeing their father burning. And like, and it's honestly like, I haven't ever witnessed in my life anything more evil than this. But every time I see someone say something like, oh, well, that's war. Oh, well, they asked for it. I don't know how they are going to cope when they realize the evil they chose to defend.
I couldn't care less how they cope.
Hmm.
Do whatever you need to do to get rid of those emotions. I couldn't care less. Why I don't have as much empathy for these guys as I would have for, say, the fake weapons of mass destruction bullshit that they did to Iraq, the fake 9/11. When I say fake, I mean false flag events that gave the America permission to absolutely wipe out people, and all with inside jobs and false flag events. Why I could possibly empathize with the people that fell for those false flag events is because they didn't have enough documentation and proof. They didn't have enough of a counter story. People had to independently research. We had to have whistleblowers and traumatized ex-military come out years later and expose what had gone on. And, the fact that all these dots didn't connect and there was no weapons and whatever, blah, blah. With this genocide, the reason why I cannot empathize with anyone on the side of Israel or with anyone who's neutral, like Annette just said, oh, well, Hamas should have known better, whatever. You should know better. You should know better, because if your argument is, well, Israel has a right to defend itself, they shouldn't have done that to Israel. What would you say about the 75 years of that being done to Palestine then? Do they not have a right to defend themselves? Do you understand that what you're saying is, whether knowingly or unknowingly, is that there are a people out there that are well within their right to defend themselves. And there are people out there that have to just cop it, cop the beating, cop the bombing, cop the apartheid, cop the annexation, cop the ethnic cleansing, cop the kidnapping, cop the rape, cop the imprisonment, false imprisonment, children being imprisoned, cop it all and stay silent and not complain. Cop being in an open-air concentration camp. Cop it and shut up and put up, and you're not allowed to complain. Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it's coming out like. That's what you're actually saying. It might be a throwaway one-liner that you've had to adopt to be able to explain to people why you're such a narcissistic, apathetic, cold-hearted, soulless, demonic entity. It's Hamas. Well, what about we try to figure out the origins of why Hamas came about? Why is there a resistance? Are you saying that the people of Palestine aren't allowed a resistance? They're not allowed an army. They have no army. They're not allowed an army. They're not allowed a navy. They're not allowed airport. They're not allowed military. They're not allowed any defense units or systems or anything. They're not allowed any of that. So do you expect them not to create little rebel groups and resistance groups and freedom fighters? Because if they didn't, they wouldn't be men. They wouldn't be people of integrity. They wouldn't be people of honor. They wouldn't be people of morale. These are people of honor. These are people of integrity. How can they sit back and watch their sisters and mothers and aunties being dragged away by the IDF, thrown into prisons for no reason under administrative detention, which means no charge? They haven't been charged for anything. They just throw them. They get raped. If they're young girls, they're getting molested. Boys get raped. Boys get molested. Their houses are getting occupied. They're getting kicked out of their houses. Their houses are being bombed. This has been ongoing for 75 years. So those half-wits, those degenerates that sit there and be like, well, Hamas started it on the 7th of October. What about the 6th of October? What about the 5th? What about the 4th? What about the 3rd? What about the 2nd? What about the 1st? What about September? What about August? What about every month since 1948? What about that? What about the Nakba? What about every single month since then? You want to talk about who started it? I'm happy to have that conversation with you. But it's hard to have conversation with soulless people. And what I've found is having any kind of discourse with these people. I don't know if you girls feel the same, but I feel like I'm surrounded by dark, demonic energy when I even look at them speaking online, when I see their videos supporting this genocide, when I see their videos being so stupid with, oh, Hamas, bring back the hostages. If you cared about the hostages, you'd be the first to call for a ceasefire. How do you know your hostages aren't being bombed? How do you know your hostages aren't being starved? You're not allowing, Israel's not allowing adequate humanitarian aid to reach the people in Gaza, which would essentially mean the hostages aren't receiving any aid either. If they cared about their hostages, would they not be calling for an immediate ceasefire? But they're so dumb, they can't even straighten up their argument. They're so immersed in hatred, bigotry, racism that they can't see how redundant their argument is. But when I speak to these people and when I see their videos and their content, and I say this a lot on my social media, it's humans versus demons. And that's essentially what it is. And no one can convince me otherwise. When we have to explain to people why genocide is wrong, know that you're not dealing with a human entity. You are dealing with a demonic entity. We have world leaders justifying why this is acceptable while simultaneously calling what took place on the 7th of October a genocide. We have these people crying over what's happened to poor Israel, the illegal occupying force who's been nothing but oppressive and brutal to the people of Palestine since Palestinians allowed them in. The same people that want to tell us that we are anti-Semitic for calling for a ceasefire. We are being gaslit on a mass scale, and your next move determines if they are going to achieve this mass psychosis bullshit. You speak up, you're speaking for humanity. If you don't speak up and you're being neutral, your silence is betrayal. You've betrayed humanity. You've told those kids in Gaza that they're not worthy of your advocacy. And that's the truth. Whether you want to hear it or not, that is the truth. And we all see it. We all see you for who you are. And we will not forget.
And I guess just like, we built a resistance when we were going through the medical tyranny and the lockdowns, understandably, so have Palestine. And I know you mentioned Hamas. I wanted to touch base with you on this because from my understanding, I feel there might be a bit of an infiltration as well from America, the US, and Israel, because you hear that they've also provided weapons.
Funded them.
I feel like this needs to be cleaned up because a lot of people are very confused about this. There is Hamas, where I guess could potentially be supported, funded by Mossad and these kinds of groups. And what we saw happen on the day that they crossed the border seemed a bit sus in terms of like Israel.
Massively.
Israel brags about detecting a freaking cockroach, right? So how did they just waltz on in and do what they did? So I feel like this is where things get a bit blurred and where people need to understand, yes, there are resistance fighters who are fighting passionately for Palestine, but there is also an element of control where just like the 9/11, that was used as an excuse to invade a country which obviously we know now that had nothing to do with that event, for their own personal gain. And I'm hearing that Palestine also has resources as well. So do you want to expand on that, Youssra?
I'm going to tell you, with the research I've done, with the questions I've asked, with the people I've spoken to, with my intuition, with my gut, with my own deliberation. I don't speak for all when I say what I believe, but there are quite a few people that agree with me. Hamas, when we hear Hamas, we think group of bunch of guys in flip-flops, Adidas pants throwing bombs. It's not the case. If I'm going to try to explain it for people to understand it, it's basically like saying New South Wales, right? Whereas within New South Wales, you have Sydney, you have Byron, you have, different cities and towns within New South Wales. The same pretty much is with Hamas. Hamas is the ruling government of Gaza, who were voted in. When they say Hamas is a terrorist group, you can't say that they are. They're not. No, not everyone agrees with that. Who got to call them that? Israel. Israel's calling them that. So therefore, all of Israel's cronies and allies are going to follow in suit and call them that. If Israel sees Hamas as a terrorist organization, why were they funding them? If Israel sees Hamas as a terrorist organization, why were they calling them the best allies for them right now to be in Gaza? So for all those people that want to say, oh, they voted them in, they voted terrorists, they are. To touch on what Doris was saying and elaborate more of what she was trying to ask. So there are brigades within Hamas. There are many brigades within Hamas. How much exactly, I'm not sure. But there are quite a few brigades within Hamas. A lot of these brigades are very hard to get into because you need to be vetted. And why it is that difficult is because of how many infiltrations have happened over the years. Mossad keeps infiltrating them. And obviously there's still remnants there. There's still infiltration there. In my opinion, what took place on the 7th of October was genuine resistant fighters. They were genuine, but whoever created that operation and called the shots was someone who has been infiltrated by Mossad, a Mossad agent, a Mossad collaborator, whoever they are, whoever called it or whispered that idea into the brigade leader's ear, whoever that was, has to be collaborating with Israel. It makes no sense that they wouldn't, right? But those that actually executed the operation are genuine Hamas fighters. Again, there are different brigades. Some are 100% grassroots, genuine, honourable men fighting for the honour of their land. And then you've got some brigades that are a bit NQR that are funded by Israel. You got some funded by Iran, and these are the different brigades. But I think the ruling ones, the ones that the ones that are dominating currently in Gaza, are the ones that are genuine resistance fighters, that are men of honor, as we've seen with the hostage releases. These hostages are walking out, not with what some people call Stockholm syndrome. They're walking out where they've had to unlearn everything they were told about these people. They were treated well. They were treated with honor. They were well fed. They were better fed than the poor people of Gaza. These hostages were better fed than the people in Gaza. One girl walked out with her puppy. And then you look at the hostages, if they get released from Israeli prisons, how they look like. Completely broken, completely defeated. Some of them walk out with psychosis, forgetting how to use their own motor skills, can't walk, can't talk. Big difference. So I just want to quickly sum it up. Hamas is a resistance group who are fighting for the liberation of Gaza, because Gaza's been in an open air concentration camp for almost 20 years, right? there has been infiltration. There are different brigades within Hamas. Some have been infiltrated. Some are controlled by Mossad. Some, from what I understand, are controlled by Iran. But for the most part, the ones that really dominate in the region are the genuine resistance fighters. I think for being around as long as they have been around, they've been able to weed out and identify the infiltrators over time, which is why they had to create subgroups and brigades. But to call them a terrorist group as a whole, I don't agree with. I think that is the mainstream media and the agenda trying to basically say to us that anyone that goes against us is classified a terrorist. We are allowed to commit all these atrocities onto them. No one can fight back. No one's allowed to defend themselves. If they do, then they are terrorists. If we're going to go by even if we're going to just go by the general definition of what terrorism is, I think the person that would suit that term best would be Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF. There are war laws that were created by, the Human Rights Convention, the Geneva Convention, and all that. There are actual laws that you can conduct yourself whilst in war. I would say that the first thing is that they're not even in a war, because to be in a war, you would need to be battling another army. They're not doing that. They're breaking a lot of these human rights laws. They're breaking a lot of the war laws. They're going full barbaric, demonic, and savage. If that's not the definition of terrorism, I don't know what is. And then you've got these very people calling a resistance group the terrorists. So I think, again, with the language, be very mindful of what language you use and what you accept, because they want to say things so much that everyone ends up believing it. You know what that saying, you say a lie enough, you end up believing it to be true? That's what they're doing. That is what they're doing. If they tell you that the Hamas are terrorists enough, you're going to believe that they are.
Repeat a lie loud enough and often enough, and it installs itself as the new truth.
Absolutely. Basically dehumanizing the people of Palestine, saying they don't have a right to defend themselves at all, is saying it enough until it's basic truth to the general population. So we need to be very mindful. So we all actually have a role in this. We're all actually powerful. If we start off just by changing the language, we're changing the narrative. Yeah, that's my whole take on your question about that, Doris. I hope I answered it the way if that's what you were asking.
That was perfect. Thanks, Youssra. And I wanted to ask you, what is going on with these Middle Eastern countries that seem to abandon Palestine?
Other than telling you that they're demonic Zionists themselves, I don't know what to say to you. They've completely abandoned them. And this is another reason why I can't understand all these lunatics that are like, Muslims are terrorists, Middle Easterners are fucking terrorists. It's like, if they wanted to rain terror or commit any atrocities, now would be the perfect time to do it. Correct? Like, now would be, they've got all the green light, they've got the excuse, they've got it all. If they wanted to take down America and Israel and whatever, would now not be the perfect time to do it, But instead, they're actually covertly in support and some overtly in support of Israel, not in support of Palestine. They can't even put any pressure on the Israeli government to allow aid into Gaza. They have no say in it. So on the outside looking into me, what does that translate to? It translates to, oh, you're all in bed together. So you're all Zionists. So you're all demonic because you sure as hell ain't Muslim. Because you sure as hell ain't following the Quran. Ain't no way. You're all on the same demonic warpath of eradicating the people of Gaza. You all agree. You're all complicit. You're all aiding in it. You're helping. There's been articles that I've read where Saudi Arabia has stopped Yemen from trying to protect the people of Gaza, that the United Arab Emirates has done something to stop also Yemen from being able to enter Gaza. Like they're really not just neglecting and abandoning the people of Gaza, but they're also aiding Israel. So I reckon if Muslims could just put their own feelings aside for a second, we all need to boycott Hajj. We really need to hit Saudi Arabia where it hurts. And I understand, I'm not deluded. I understand they're wealthy regardless of Hajj. But they make a killing through Hajj. We should boycott it because of their stance on Gaza. I have heard by many people that you're not even allowed to supplicate. You're not even allowed, while you're in Hajj, while you're standing in front of the Kaaba, you're not even allowed to loudly pray for Gaza. You get approached by the Saudi authorities and they ask you to either shut up or leave. And some people have been arrested. There have been sheikhs, imams who have made their congregations and they've spoken about Gaza who have been arrested. So when I tell you, I feel like when I think about these people, I get this ugly, dark energy, this feeling of ugly, demonic energy. I'm telling you, I feel like we are in parallel worlds. We've got humans and then we've got demons, and it's humans versus demons. And a lot of them, the Arab world, cowards, they're cucks. They're all a bunch of cucks, all of them. And may God's wrath befall on them as well.
And that in itself highlights that no religion should be considered a threat, because religion is not, all the religious teachings aren't based on barbaric behavior like that and killing.
No.
It's the infiltration that has occurred at all levels from this minority group. You know what I mean?
Well, if you look at it, look at which religion is condoning genocide according to their holy book. Which religion's the one that's saying, well, this is prophecy, it needs to happen, so what? Our book says so. The religions that are condoning this genocide are the very religions that are calling Islam a terrorist religion. Muslims are calling for a ceasefire. You're calling for the genocide. Who's the terrorist?
I want to touch on this because Islam has really been given a bad name. You're portrayed as, women having no rights, terrorists. Yeah, you kill people who aren't Muslim. You kill gay people. Whatever else people have, come up with about Islam. Okay?
Theories and fairy tales.
Because my mother is a practicing Muslim. I have a lot of Muslim people in my life, and I've not seen nothing but pure love, good-heartedness, kindness. Yourself, Youssra, I've not come across a Muslim person who has pushed their beliefs onto people or me, or made comments about killing people because they don't believe in Islam, made comments about killing gay people, anything like that. Where does this all come from? I don't.
The
media, yes, but where else?
All right. Question: what were we called during the days of the COVID vaccination? What were we called? We were called neo-Nazi, white supremacist, alt-right-wing extremists, anti-vax nut jobs, conspiracy theorists, mentally ill. We don't deserve hospital beds if we get sick. We don't deserve Medicare concessions. We don't deserve anything. We actually don't even deserve to live. Do you remember that? Just because we had a different outlook on certain things in the world that they did. If you look at how the mainstream media red carpeted these thoughts, these disgusting thoughts on people who simply said, hey, mate, I don't want to be a guinea pig. I don't want a COVID jab because it's still in its trial phase. I don't know what it is. I don't want it in my body. The mainstream media, our politicians, all these people who are meant to act with some form of ethic were on TV, on social media, on any platform they could, calling us donkeys, calling us crazy people, calling us, a waste of oxygen, calling us all these derogatory. We were being bullied. What did the general consensus around the freedom movement say when we would be faced with these things? It's because we are telling the truth. It's because we are exposing the lies. It's because we are standing our ground. It's because we will not give up on our autonomy. It's because we will stand up for our right to choose. It is because we are going to remain steadfast, because we are not going to pander, because we are not going to curtail, and because we will not trade in our ideologies for temporary freedoms. We just will not. That's the same thing with Muslims. I hope you understood what I meant by all that. That's literally the same. Other religions have been changed over time. They've been able to infiltrate all these religions. The only religion that's remained steadfast on their morals, that we get called, oh, you're from the fucking Stone Ages, you still do this and you still do that, and the fact that women still cover, and the fact that we're not allowed to have boyfriends and girlfriends, it's straight marriage, and we're too conservative and we're too Stone Agey. Because we won't give in to these agendas. We won't give in to the push to, destroy gender roles, the push to destroy the nuclear family, the push for a godless society, the push for a genderless society, the push for all of these agendas. Our religion, by following our religion, you can't infiltrate us with those ideologies. You just can't. So they try to demonize it. They want Islam to be more watered down, more secular. They celebrate all the very modern progressive Muslims, and they call you brave if you take off your hijab and all this other stuff. They just, like Annette, I could go on and on about this, but in a nutshell, we're a hard nut to crack, and they really want to crack this nut because we're their biggest threat. If we follow the Quran properly, we cannot be at any point infiltrated by their demonic ideologies. Simple.
We've been protesting, worldwide every week, and people have been trying to prevent shipments going to Israel. And so far, maybe we might have helped out a little bit, but people are still dying. Innocent people are still being genocided. What do you think needs to be done? What can we do? What else can we do? Because I feel very helpless. I don't know what I can do. All I can do is share posts and information.
And keep sharing and keep protesting and keep calling your MPs and keep sending them emails and keep signing petitions and keep doing whatever you got to do, because they will crack under pressure. I think, listen, hear me out. The freedom movement throughout COVID, the reason why we were quite unsuccessful in our advocacy was because we should have learnt a lot from the left. The left know how to advocate. They're good activists. They don't just go to a park and yell. They don't. They're at the MP's office. They're at the foreign minister's office. They're stopping shipments. They're vetoing trucks that deliver to the ship. They go above and beyond. They will somehow track down where the foreign minister's having dinner and where Albo's having dinner, and they will go there and that will disrupt the crap out of their night with enough pressure. And obviously, when we all come together, there's a collective consciousness. There's this morale that gets built when we keep fighting, and that we need it more than the people of Gaza do. Because how could we live with ourselves if they are over there popping all that and we're sitting here not doing whatever we can within our ability and capacity to do? We all have phones. Use them. Call your local members of parliament. Call the senators. Call Peter Dutton, that piece of shit. Call Penny Wong. Call Albanese's office. Demand an immediate ceasefire now. Go to your local MP. They are actually obligated to be on mouthpiece. That's their whole purpose, right? Send emails. I've got a link in my bio where we've got resolution 377A about if you guys watched the UN resolution thing where the Americans vetoed the ceasefire. According to how that's all meant to work out, they can implement Article 377A and ceasefire must take place. There's a link in my bio where you just click on it. It's pre-filled for you. All you got to do is attention it to James Larson, I believe, and at the bottom where it says regards, you just put your name. Send it to our Australian UN ambassador, and whether it works or not, we are collectively putting pressure. We are collectively vibrating on a frequency of humanitarianism. We all these love and lighters want to talk about negative energy and positive energy. There's a lot more frequencies in the world than just negative and positive, let me tell you. And one of that is to have humanity, to fight for people, to fight for their right to live when we don't know them, when we have no horses in that race. But we care about humanity so much that we're fighting for them. We're fighting for their right to survive, to be safe, to have proper and adequate, basic human necessities. So whatever it takes, do it. Change your language. It's not a war. It's not a conflict. It's a genocide. Call it for what it is. Hamas did not start this. Israel did. Speak with people, enlighten them, have discussions, post. Hashtag ceasefire now. When you see anything that comes out of Gaza, when you see anything, any horrendous, and there's a lot, there's a plethora online. Whenever you see one, disrupt Penny Wong by atting her in the comment section. Tag her in it, tag Albanese in it, and hashtag ceasefire now. There's only so much they can get away with in the space of social media and the world we live in now. There's very little they can escape from. It's not like 20 years ago. It's not like we can only hear from them when the news is talking about them. Now we've got a lot more access to them. So we need to use that access. We need to learn how to advocate properly, and we need to do it, because I don't want to know that we could have done more and we didn't. Maybe we are God's chosen soldiers, and we've been put in this position, and we're not one of the brainwashed, virtue signaling, demonic Israel supporters. God's chosen us to be on the side of good, on the side of humanity, by advocating for these people. I don't want to let God down. I'm going to do whatever is within my capacity, and I'm doing it with my kids, because when I'm gone, I want my kids to be just like me. Whenever there is something like this in the world, hopefully this is never repeated. But if it's ever repeated, I know I've left a legacy for my kids where they're advocating for those people. And that's what we should do. Otherwise, we're going to leave the world to be overrun by all these demonic entities and all these heartless, soulless robots who don't care about anything but their own backyard, who don't care about anything but, whether the pub's open or not. And that's the truth. We had people punching on over toilet paper. Toilet paper. People were crying, punching on over toilet paper. There are children in Gaza that are collecting water from motors to drink with a lid. And you guys were punching on over toilet paper. What a disgusting world we live in. What a disgusting world we live in. I don't even want to be a part of this world. It's so disgusting. It's just overrun by demons and demon sympathizers, and it's just too much black energy around.
I think that we have to reject this mentality that, posting doesn't do anything. I remember Selena Gomez posted that post saying that her post won't matter or something like that.
No,
like
she's got the biggest following on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like, seriously, every post does matter, because even though you may not change someone's mind with your one post, that post serves as a like one fraction of what is going to change their mind. And like, if they're hearing it from you and then someone else in their life says the same thing that you're saying, and then they come across someone on the bus that says that the same thing that you said and that other person in their life said, guess what happens? Because humans, like, unfortunately, we do want to conform to the hive mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unfortunate, but we need to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We can't change it. It's been society for the longest time. People are conformists, unfortunately. We've got to make it fashionable to have a heart. We have to make empathy fashionable, unfortunately. Yeah. When we're posting and when we're advocating for the people of Palestine, it's also for our own humanity. Like, we need to revive our heart with empathy. If we practice apathy long enough, we're going to kill that part of our heart that feels compassion and empathy towards others. By advocating, by not letting advocacy and activism and standing up for human rights become extinct and keeping it alive, that part of our heart will stay alive. Apathy can be contagious as well, but we can also make empathy contagious. We can use our own empathy and compassion to actually make people feel ashamed for not having it in them to speak out for others. And it's important we do that, believe it or not. But I used to be like, man, I'm not going to talk to these people because X, Y, Z. But now I'm like, no, I'm going to have this conversation. I don't care if it makes you feel uncomfortable. There are children that are dying. Their bodies are being decaying under rubble. There's people that I've spoken to who have family in Gaza who say things to me like, whilst we're worrying about, the cost of petrol and, what day school ends and what we're going to do for the Christmas holiday, there are people that I've spoken to that have said, I'm waiting for the genocide to be over so I can go dig my family out from under the rubble so I can give them a proper burial. This is 2023. We're almost in 2024. How's this still happening? Well, how? But yeah, keep posting. Don't stop talking about Palestine because we've been silent about it for 75 years. Enough.
Mm.
We can't just let everything that's happened be swept away like a non-issue, like it has been for the past 75 years.
Mm.
There are calls to action. You don't need to follow certain people or certain groups. It would be great if you did because, there's power in numbers and the collective consciousness and all that. But if you want to do your own thing, just call your local MP. Send them an email if you don't want to do the phone call. Ask for an immediate ceasefire. Share these people's stories. There was a TikTok that I saw a while ago where there were two sisters. One sister lives in Canada, one sister's still in Gaza. And she would send her sister voice notes to make sure she's still okay. Please let me know you're still alive. Please let me know you're still alive. The sister would respond, yes, I'm still alive. And one day the sister in Gaza asked her sister in Canada, does the world know what's happening to us? She said to her, not only do they know, but each country around the world every week are protesting for you. They're marching their city streets, demanding your freedom, your liberation, a ceasefire now. Every country, by the hundreds of thousands, people are standing up for you guys in Gaza. And the sister in Gaza said, if I die now, my heart is at ease.
That's beautiful.
Because our voices have been heard and we have been seen.
Mm.
That alone should keep us going. Because it's one thing to die the way they've been massacred and killed. But to know also the world didn't care would be adding insult to injury. And I refuse to allow that to happen on my watch.
There are specific individuals out there who are actually denying that what we're seeing is real, claiming that the footage that is being shown.
Oh, like Serene Tefaha. Okay, if we're going to talk about Serene Tefaha, she's a nut job. I don't want to dabble in people with psychosis. She's just a nut job. She's on some heavy stuff or nuts, crazy lady. Anyone that wants to say that this is, yeah, there are people that say this is green screen and this is footage and this is you can't You can't. We are getting minute by minute documentation. You can't hoodwink us with this. This is the difference between Israel and Palestine. You want to hear it? Israel tells you what's happening to them. Palestine shows you what's happening to them. We've got enough proof to refute all their claims of green screen, of recycled, of whatever, blah, blah. We've got enough proof. They have tried to infiltrate that proof by creating fake accounts and claiming that they're Palestinians, you know, using footage of movie sets and blah, 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 just to be able to debunk us. Because what shame fell upon them when they were using AI images, you know? They wanted to try to make us look just as disingenuous, but you've got the Israeli government that aren't even outwardly denying these atrocities. They're just shifting the blame on Hamas. They're acknowledging that these atrocities are happening, but they're just saying, oh, well, Hamas uses them as human shields. So therefore, it's kind of they're kind of asking for it. We told them to move. We told them to leave that area. They didn't leave. Oh, well, that's literally what they're saying. They're not outwardly saying, no, this didn't happen. No, this didn't take place. No, that those people aren't being killed. They're just shifting the blame pretty much. So anyone that denies this footage as being real is an actual clown.
I would hate to be someone who is denying the extreme suffering upon thousands and thousands and thousands. You know, like, that is a big thing to carry.
That's a big thing to call. Like, you can't be calling that stuff. It's just disgusting to add insult to injury in such a disgusting, despicable way. You know, there's a lot of cluster B personalities in the world, a lot.
Thank you so much for being on today and, you know, sharing all of that insight and information. Till next time, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.